Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Scorpio and your moon in Virgo. Scorpio is a water sign and Virgo is an earth sign, and they are harmonious. It does depend on the degree of sun and moon to see if they actually form a sextile, but their elements are harmonious. We have the water and we have the earth. And what's nice about it is that the emotional and intuitive can really complement the practical. If you have too much emotion and not enough kind of common sense, that's not good. And then too much of the practical without any kind of intuition or spiritual insight that can be too mundane or materialistic. So it's a nice balance here. And I like the fact that the moon is in an earth sign because it will make the person, the Scorpio, who tends to be very intense, a lot more on an even keel emotionally. The sun is the aspirational self, so it can really be in the forefront in terms of our goals and our persona as a whole. With Scorpio, we're talking about a very complicated type of individual who is a water sign, but the two rulers of Scorpio are Pluto and Mars, and that Martian part, that Mars is the ruler of Aries, a fire sign as well, can sometimes really show up, and there's a ferocity with Scorpio, although Pluto is no slouch either and is very into being in control or power. Pluto is the lord of the underworld, and so Scorpio people tend to gravitate towards situations where there is trauma involved. The eighth house that Scorpio rules is the house of death and the house of transformation and the house of trauma, of the shadow. And so Scorpio people are very extreme in their way of being. And this is often because they have come from that trauma growing up in some way, shape, or form, and they can't live another way. It's like they're the cat with nine lives or something. They're always reinventing themselves, but not in a shallow way, in the way that is like the alchemist. And that's the higher version, because if the Scorpio person isn't, sun sign is not balanced, they can end up being very destructive and also self-destructive. So it's important to keep a high vibration when you are a Scorpio, because you are a very powerful sign and you have a powerful aura that can be directed towards other people, and you know it. You know that you have this power and you don't want to abuse that power, whether you're raising children, whether you are in a relationship with somebody, or whether you're a boss. If you are in, or even a co-worker, you don't want to be that kind of Machiavellian person who's always manipulating situations to your advantage, just because you have that natural insight into other people's motivations and and maybe emotional weaknesses that you can exploit if you're not at the highest level. The moon in Scorpio can make somebody really doubt themselves. They can feel, this sense of being a perfectionist, being hard on themselves. They question their judgments and things like that. Oftentimes this can come from the mother, because the moon can represent how your mother treated you. If she treated you in a Virgo-like fashion, she may have had impossible standards for you. She may have been overly critical of you. And that doesn't go away when you turn 18 magically. I have the moon in Scorpio, by the way. And, I have to say, I started my videos, even like a year before I started doing these readings. Just started experimenting with making videos at the age of 48. So you can imagine how old that is when you think about the grand scheme of things. If any of you are in your 40s, you might be tempted to think, this is as good as it gets. This is where I'm destined to stay until I retire or what have you. And just the idea of doing something completely different may seem may seem like completely absurd. But it's not. You never know what can happen. You never know what idea you come up with. And that certainly was true for me because it happened later in life. And somebody might be listening to this in their 50s or 60s, and the same thing could apply to you. So the point is that keeping an open mind, but also the reason I bring this up is that when I started doing these videos, I was very much a perfectionist, and I was trying to do everything, every and everything. I was trying to edit that out. And then I just let that go. I realized that was unsustainable, and it really freed me up. So doing something where you stick your neck out and you put yourself out there can be very freeing for you because you find out that you don't have to be perfect to be okay. The challenge here is that Scorpio is such a strong sign and wants to be in control that you may have a hard time admitting, there might be this pride within yourself. And I think it's really a fear of not being in control that would be more of the case than just out and out pride. And you might be tempted to deny that you have these insecurities because Scorpios tend to hate weaknesses in themselves and others. And that is another thing that Scorpio has to learn to change about their perception of life, because vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability can be strength if the person is not ashamed that they have a side of themselves that is very sensitive to them. And so whether it's you that is admitting your vulnerabilities or you're with somebody who has done so and now you think of them differently, that has to change, because if not, it's going to be very difficult for you to have an authentic relationship with somebody of a very deep nature. And that's what you want more than anything, typically, is that kind of deep relationship. And you may find it hard to have that if you don't share your vulnerable side with that person. But because Scorpio often has been through trauma, you do have trust issues, and you may have this false sense of security coming across as invulnerable that doesn't serve you or anyone else. So just keep that in mind. And even if you have children and maybe you've had you had a difficult childhood and you don't want to tell them what you went through, you may not have the kind of relationship with your child that you really want to have. It may be always a little bit distant, because I do feel that Scorpio is a complicated sign, and that's one of the reasons why, that secretive quality. And when you share of yourself, that allows other people to understand your motivations better. So when you act in ways that are kind of difficult sometimes, perhaps, another person can say, okay, well, now I understand why she's micromanaging the situation, or he is being secretive and not telling me everything, is because that's just been a habitual pattern, and that makes him feel safe. And I don't have to think that he's just withholding something just to be a jerk or something like that. I think this is a great combination for relationships if you can develop trust, because you have that passionate side to yourself, but you also, with the moon in Virgo, you're very dutiful to your partner and you want to help them, you want to do nice things for them. So to me, that's the best of both worlds. In terms of professions, anything involving psychology, counseling is something that you would excel in, because with the moon in Virgo, you can be very analytical about the emotional nature and be able to articulate it in a way that the sun in Scorpio is feeling through these things. Very intuitive with Scorpio. And another field would be forensic science or criminal justice, anything like a detective, something where you have to notice small details. Virgo is great with details. And Scorpio, it just has that intuitive ability, but also the real sense that there's always more to the story, that, you could call it like a suspicious nature, if you will, but there's that desire to dig below the surface. Also, in terms of spiritual, like a healer type of person, shamanism may appeal to you, because with the moon in an earth sign, shamanism is like an earth type of religion, and Scorpio is all about transformation, and that personal alchemy of shamanism is very appealing. Of course, the paganism might appeal to you as well. That's an earth-based religion. I could see a Virgo woman calling herself a witch, and and I think of Halloween and things like that. But regardless of gender, the point is that I have always suspected, and this is one of the reasons why I've always been kind of a little bit turned off to paganism when it gets into this stuff about spells and things like that, because I really don't like the idea of trying to force things, and especially when people, want to do love spells, trying to get somebody. That to me is very manipulative, and unfortunately to me that feeds into the lower nature of Scorpio, of trying to gain this power and manipulating, spiritual manipulation, through so-called magic. And these kinds of things to me are for people that are control freaks who want to control everything. And I don't think that is a healthy form of spirituality. And I realize that not all pagans are like that. So don't be offended and think that I'm against you if that's what your practices are. It's not about that. I'm saying that there is this negative side that people can get into when they feel personally powerless. How I see it is, first of all, you have to stand in your own power. It's not about siphoning power from somebody else, or trying to get somebody to do your bidding or anything like that. And also, being able to be happy regardless. Like, you don't need a certain circumstance to manifest for you to be happy, because that can be problematic. You can do all the spells in the world, but you might not get what you want. And then what's going to happen? Are you going to feel bitter inside, and are you going to take it out on other people? Or are you going to let go and let God? So, and that is actually part of manifestation anyway. with the law of attraction is the art of allowing. You put in your order and you wait for it. You don't like check on it every 5 minutes. So anyway, that's what I have for you. I don't know. Sometimes I get off on these tangents. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.